Well, hello, and welcome back to another Cameron Brooks roundtable discussion with Joel and Pete. Say hello, guys.
Hello, everybody.
So today, during our roundtable, we wanted to discuss a hot topic as of late, internships. I think traditionally, there have been a couple of different avenues in which an officer could initiate and facilitate their transitions. And now we're starting to hear more and more about different military internship programs. And this definitely comes up in my initial contact conversations with officers. So we wanted to tackle this subject today, internship and career searches, what they are, just so you'll be armed with more knowledge as you make your transition decision. But before we dive into all of these topics, and I wanted to throw an icebreaker question out at Pete and Joel. So, what was your very first job ever?
You go first.
My very first job ever was mowing the lawn and picking up trash at my dad's funeral.
There you go.
So
A lot of people start on that.
Would you say gopher generally?
Or moving flowers into the room where the body was being viewed. Riding along to go pick up bodies. I did both of those things as well. So I'd say that was my first job.
And you, Pete?
My first job was at a place called Hearst Automotive, and I was 14 years old, and he was a friend of the family, and I would ride my bike on Bandera Road in San Antonio, Texas, and I'd show up at about 7:30, and he would have me sanding cars and moving stuff, and just a full day of work, and then I would be completely covered in who knows what, and then I would just ride my bike home. Hearst Automotive.
That's awesome. I love the idea of being able to ride a bike to work. My first job was pet sitting. I went around our neighborhood and I made flyers. I put flyers in everybody's mailbox. And I was actually, my neighbor had me sign up. And at one point I had to crawl through a window to feed the cats and dogs. So just going that extra mile. I was committed. So it sounds like we have a, great professional work life start there. But all right, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And our goal for today is that you'll walk away with more insights into internship programs and career searches and utilizing either an internship or recruiting firm, how it all works. So I think a good starting point would be to just go back to basics. So Pete, help us. Let's define an internship. Start there.
Well, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about our perception of military officers getting into an internship. It's something that the DoD Skill Bridge is offering, and it looks different based on the service you're in. But the bottom line is there's a means by which an officer can step away, still on active duty, step away from their current role and go to another company in an internship capacity. So there's no salary, there's no benefits. It's only to go and learn more about the company and contribute to the organization in a specific job. And so as we're talking about internships, that's really where we should start. Am I missing something? Are you?
Yeah, I think the bigger picture of what we're talking about is skill bridge. I mean, I think that's really the theme is how to use skill bridge to help you in your transition. Because skill bridge is a Department of Defense, as people listening to this probably already know, is a Department of Defense approved program that allows people to take a certain amount of time away from working in the military to find work post-military. In the design of it, or the thought, the idea of it, anything program that assures veterans to be able to land positions is really good. One component of that, a big component of that, is internships. And I think in a larger picture, we're going to talk about skill bridge, specifically internships, because the military officer is often looking at the skill bridge program and seeing internships as one of the options. And I think in certain cases, it absolutely makes sense to do. In some cases, I think it's people are making choices to do this based on kind of some short-term thinking. And I think that, for my reason in talking with you all, it'd be good to get some of these thoughts out here of what we're experiencing, and not just like our opinion. There's going to be some opinion here, of course, but see even things that we're experiencing and seeing people getting out of the military and being successful and not successful with them. And then also how Cameron Brooks fits into this whole skill bridge transition piece, since we don't really offer internships.
So a couple of things that we want to do is we want to look at really two pathways: engaging in the skill bridge through whatever service you're in, and the potential advantages of doing that versus some of the trade-offs associated with that. So we'll start the conversation there, and then we'll move over and we'll talk about, okay, well, let's say you use a recruiting firm instead in order to launch your business career. What are the advantages of that? What are maybe some of the trade-offs of that? So we're going to kind of go on two paths. We'll start with that path, and then we'll talk about a recruiting firm, and we'll kind of go from there. And so what I'd like to start with is some advantages, or at least perceived advantages, of going from the military through Skill Bridge, and specifically an internship program at a company, in order to launch your career. So a lot of things that we've heard, and we're gonna come at this from our experience and the officers that we've spoken to, some that have gone through this program or at least considered going through this program. And I think the biggest thing that we hear from officers as to why they're choosing to do an internship with a very specific company is, in a word, more certainty. They feel like locking up, even though it's not a guaranteed job after the military, the things that I hear are locking up a probable job 3, 4, even 6 months, depending on the branch of service you're in, 3, 4, 6 months before you actually step out on terminal leave. And so you have the opportunity to go to a company, into a specific job, and most of the time in a specific location. And so at least in the conversation that I have, officers tell me, if I could figure out all of this stuff way before I get out of the military, even come on terminal leave, where am I going to go work? Where am I going to go live? What job am I going to have? It alleviates a lot of pressure, and especially for those that are married or in a long-term relationship, it really alleviates pressure for the family as well. Hey, all of our questions are going to be answered way upstream, and I'm just going to go do this job in this specific location, and it alleviates a lot of pressure, therefore offers certainty, or at least a perceived certainty.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a person that loves certainty. I really do. And I think that if somebody said to me, and so my terminal leave started, our separation date was August 31st when I got out. If somebody said to me on February or January, I could start like exploring options and probably have a most likely situation lined up for February, and I could take from March until June to work for an organization, see if it's the right fit. It would be a compelling situation for me in terms of, in theory, for those factors in of itself. And I have a habit in our sessions here to get a little bit ahead, and I might get ahead here. We've been saying the word recruiting firm, and I'm glad you guys did that, because we're really here at Cameron Brooks transitioning, and this is funny, we're trying to transition from calling ourselves a recruiting firm to really defining ourselves as a transition firm, a transition organization, and not use the word recruiting, because we do so much more than help people find positions. And we're really our model here is more than just helping you find work. Is there an element, a component of that? Absolutely. You got to have that. But we're after is truly transitioning. And I think about the transition, even a 4-year officer, it took months, years to prepare to be a military officer. Then you spent 4 years just like in the womb of the military, just absorbed in it. And your skill set, your work, just separate from the military. It's a big change. There's a movement from this island to this island over here. And it takes time, it takes a good fit, it takes experience. And so we're after this transition of not just finding the position, but the right company, the right career track, so that not in months after you get out, you have a job, but 3, 4, 5 years post you got out, we could look at the resume and say, wow, look at the company you're with, look at the accomplishments that you have, look at the experiences now. So now from here, you have this like foundation that you can jump from. And so I think if I'm in the military and I'm thinking about most important for me is I just want work and I want it to be in a certain location and I really need to know now. I think that there are some very compelling reasons for internships through the SkillBridge program. And I think this is the why we're here today, is that there's some people that are thinking long-term, they're thinking about the transition. I want a top-tier company. I want a great developmental role. And I want it to be a fit, and I don't want a job hop. I want to make sure I avoid do-overs. I don't want to get out, start work, and change. Okay, so I need to start thinking a little more long-term and less about the immediate pain. No doubt, the immediate pain of uncertainty is right in front of you. But long-term, are you thinking 2, 3, 4 years of not being in the right fit and kind of some of the pain that could cause? And I think that's where the career search in Cameron Brooks versus I want to do the internship to get the certainty, to get the location, to have everything locked up, kind of diverge. It depends on somebody's goals.
Why don't we talk a little bit about, so we've got here's some of the perceived advantages to doing the internship. Based on the people that you've talked to, people that I've talked to, what are some of the perhaps trade-offs to doing it? Okay, great, you're going to lock up this idea of certainty, job, location, but okay, great. What are some of the downsides associated with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to answer the question. I think it's important that we caveat this, right? We want everybody that's listening to this, obviously, if you're watching this, we're Cameron Brooks. We have an opinion, sure, right? It's going to come from our perspective. And we're going to be telling the story we're going to try to be as objective as we can, but of course we're going to tell our story from the side that we really see the world, as most people do. So I think I mentioned, and you were talking about the trade-offs, I think I mentioned some of the positives and the why to do that. Now, what I hear from people that when they have explored some of the internship programs out there, and there are some good quality companies, some that are offering the internships, but it's small. It's not the preponderance of them. And the reason for that being is most of the internship programs that I know of that sponsor all this, they offer, they're working with spouses of veterans. They're working with veterans who are retiring that are non-commissioned, officers that are served 20 that are retiring, enlisted. So this program wasn't set up specifically for one type of veteran. And so if you look at an officer retiring versus an NCO retiring, very different. Certainly a junior officer, what we work with, it's probably one of the most unique in terms of their fit in the business world and the demand for that person. So going through the internship program, most of what I hear is that you get maybe 4, 5, 6 opportunities to explore, and a lot of times it's like submit a resume. They get back to you if they like you or not. You don't even meet them. You might get to talk to them, but it's a little bit different. And then usually people tell me there's 1 or 2 that really felt like a good fit for the military officer, specifically for them. Which, again, if we're after the successful transition, you got to avoid the do-overs. We know from our experience, avoiding do-overs helps because you've done your comparison, power comparison, looking at a variety of options. So when I ask people that are, hey, I'm going to do the internship, it's just out of curiosity. I think it's important for you to ask whoever you're working with in this overarching program, what is their retention rate after year 1? What is their retention rate after year 3? And they can't tell me. That's the one of the things that does concern me about it. So I think there's some trade-offs, right? Trade-off the number of quality of opportunities, the number you get to compare. Is it a long-term play? Or obviously we mentioned the positives. You get to go to work, you get to really work in an environment for 90 to 100 days, 20 days.
Build some relationships.
Build relationships, here it's a good fit, certainly helpful. But I would really like to see what is the data that shows that helps make the successful transition. Or maybe they don't want to be that. That's okay too.
Yeah,
that's
right.
not important to them.
I think the hard thing is in that scenario is you get, someone who were to go do an internship, and I have looked at these, by the way. I've logged on and kind of evaluated all the opportunities in a specific base, a very large Army base. And to your point, there's DoD, there's government contracting, there's nonprofit, there's just that it runs the gamut. So a military officer, because of the specialty of their background, like you said, really does eliminate, the preponderance of opportunities. Like, oh, here's the 2 or 3 roles. And so I think that makes it hard, because if you find something, or you find a company that will pursue you and you go do an internship, you get to the end of the internship, even if they offer you a position, which I think that's the intention. I think the intention is that they would offer you a position. You're there. You're ingrained. You've been there 2 or 3 or 4 months. So good or not, there's no comparison. And it's like, well, I'm here. Let me just roll with it. And I think that's when Joel said that to me, that's what I think. That introduces, in my opinion, uncertainty. I know that there's certainty in going and getting a job and starting work and locking things up early. But in my mind, you get to the internship, even if you receive an offer, there's no comparing of other opportunities. And suddenly, at least in the people that we've spoken to, some of which we've actually partnered with, you get to the end of it and it feels a little bit less certain. But hey, here's where I'm at. I'm going to roll with it. And I think that can be the hard part about it.
Yeah, in some ways it's no different than some people that might narrow down on location and take a lower tier opportunity, or one that's not quite a fit. I shouldn't call it lower tier opportunity. It's not quite a fit. They'll take the position with the strategy. I'll take this and I'll just start looking around.
Right.
I got the job, I got benefits, know where I'm going to live. It's good, decent pay. And I'll just start, keep interviewing. That's the do-over. That's not the successful transition. And I think that's what a lot of people do, is they take it and then they wonder, oh, what else is out there? Is there anything better? And you don't know, because there's nothing perfect, right? We even tell the people that accept the positions through us, it's not going to be perfect, right? And so there's going to be trade-offs. And that's the great thing about getting out of the military, is you get to make choices. Choices mean I'm going to choose between some trade-offs that I'm willing to accept or not accept. I wanted to also build on something. In the summer, I'll hit 23 years here at Cameron Brooks. And I think between Chuck, Mary Lou, and myself, we're the Chuck's our CEO, Mary Lou is one of our associate principals. There's nobody that's been longer in the veteran recruiting space than Chuck, or Mary Lou the most, then Chuck, then me. And what I have seen in 22 years, 22 plus, is there's a lot of strategies that happen in recruiting where you take on what is good for the college graduate, what's good for a college student. Let's apply it to the military officer. And so what are you doing with an internship? Before they started doing this in the military, where else did they ever do internships? College campuses, MBA campuses. It's between your junior and senior year. You got to get a good internship. I'm living this right now with my second daughter. Get a good internship. They're probably going to offer you a job at the end. So what do? They hire a whole bunch of college grads as an intern. And statistically, a lot of them, they're going to take like 70% of it. And then of those 70%, probably within a year to 18 months after they graduate, a whole bunch are going to quit. Let's just play this numbers game. That's the internship model. Or before that, what we saw was rotational programs. Well, I got my daughter just graduated from college, went into a rotational engineering program for the next year and a half, 2 years. Those are good for college when they don't have any proven experience. So we've just seen this over and over again. Take something that works well with the college grad, let's apply it to the military person. But if you're a junior officer and you're high potential, you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years of experience, real experience under your belt. Do you really want to go into something where a lieutenant colonel or an 04, 05 is also in there and rotate for 2 years. Maybe you do. Maybe you really like that. And that's okay. I'm not passing judgment. But most people want to step into a real role, a real position. I was talking to somebody earlier today that I'm looking at the skill bridge. I want to do this, do the internship. And I was explaining to them, I said, we don't do the internships at Cameron Brooks. And it's not because like we couldn't do them, we could create it. But our companies come to us with open positions.
Right. They have a need.
They have a need. It's an open position, as you've seen this, Pete, and hope you've seen it. That open position actually has a rec number, a requisition number associated with a hiring manager, with a base salary. If we went to them and say, hey, we're going to place somebody with you and you can have them for free for 3 months, you don't have to pay them. They're like, but we have this open position.
Right.
We don't want to fill that. We don't want to do it. We can't do that.
Right.
And so, and you're talking about A-tier companies, top Johnson & Johnson's and consulting firms like EY and, things like that, that we've got sales positions that are going to manage this territory, consulting engagements where from day one, you're going to be put on an engagement. Will you learn technology? Absolutely. But we're going to put you on an engagement and bill your hours, real roles. So our companies aren't set up. As much as like a junior officer say, well, why would they want to have free labor for 90 days or 100 days? Well, it's just not set. When you're hiring an A player for a developmental role, right, they're not thinking internship. I'm sorry, I keep talking a lot, but I have to add this one. So occasionally we have a fresh college graduate we try to help. It's usually a family member, nephew, niece, those types of things. Right. And get them experience, have them do some interviewing. And we do this like once every 3 or 4 years. We recently did this. Right. It's a great experience for the person, but didn't get any traction.
No traction.
No traction at our conference. Why? Because that's not set up for internships. It's not set up for, it's set up for, you need to have experience to go into these roles.
That's right.
And
he was a talented guy with a great resume and a
technical business degree.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so Hope, then so why, we want to be fair and objective. So why would someone then choose to execute on, hey, I'm going to go do an internship through the Skill Bridge program?
Yeah. And so I think you guys had a great discussion on flipping either side of the coin, pros and cons. So I think, from what I'm hearing and what I've heard from officers, an internship might be right for you if you're looking for a role that's very specific or specialized. For example, I was chatting with an officer yesterday and her end goal is to be, a licensed dietitian. And so she has secured a skill bridge position that's going to allow her to continue along that route. So that was perfect for her. If, it might be right for you if you have to get back to a certain location for family reasons or something. And then also, if you need that certainty element, and that's something that's really important to you, but just as we kind of discussed, the certainty could be a pro and it could be a con. So, evaluating, short-term versus long-term, what that looks like for you in your career.
One of the, the whole reason we're even doing this is because what we're trying to do is not disparage one or say, hey, this is the right way for you, or you must do it this way. This is not the intention of the conversation. The intention is to bring to light things that maybe you're not thinking about, ideas about how will this actually affect me? Because on the surface, as Joel started this whole conversation with, it's pretty attractive. Hey, I could kind of leave the military early, lock it up early, but a lot of times when I'm talking to military officers, and I'm asking them questions like, well, what about after this is over, or what will you compare it to? I haven't quite thought about that. So the intention is not to, again, disparage a decision. The intention is to get you thinking about some of the questions you should probably be asking yourself as you're trying to decide what's right for you, what's right for your family.
So I want to just jump in there, like, as you're saying this, questions that you should ask yourself. I believe that every military officer should ask themselves this one question before they even drop their resignation. And it's going to tie into the, do you do an internship or do you do something like a transition firm like Cameron Brooks? We all know, well, I shouldn't say we all know, people predominantly get out of the military for quality of life reasons, work-life balance, kind of one and the same there. Maybe more control of your career, more upside, promotion, paid based on performance. Maybe they just wanted to serve and get in business. So you know your why you're leaving. So that's okay. You got that. This is why I'm leaving here. That's not. You're not ready yet to drop the resignation. Now you know I don't believe that this is a fit. Now the question is, where do I see myself 3, 4, 5 years down the road? 3 to 5 years. What is going to make a happy, successful professional career for me? Might as well put in their professional or personal life too. I believe that's the question. Start with a blank piece of paper and just jot it down, jot thoughts down, jot ideas. It doesn't have to be, I want to be sales, a medical company in Washington, D.C. That's difficult to do that. But I want to be a future leader, see myself in business. I like to lead. I like to solve problems. I like to manage projects. Okay, you just describe the development candidate role. The person you talk to, you hope, describe the non-development role. We need both. But figure out what your goal is. Where do you want to go? Then you got to back up. Okay, what's the path?
Right. How do I get there?
How do I get there? Now you can probably drop your resignation because now you have a goal of what you want. But now you got to figure out what's the path to get there. So what we're talking about today is the path, an internship program is the path where I'm going to do something more, where I'm going to do more interviewing tailored specifically towards a junior officer. Probably not going to be able to really start interviewing until about 60 days prior to the terminal leave. So 90 days to 120 or so before I'm done getting paid by the military. It's always the hardest thing. You got to resign before you have a job. Nobody else does that other than the military. No. So I'm trying to figure out what's the path that's going to help me get there. And based on the internship programs, gearing themselves towards all types of veterans, the variability, the quality of the companies and the positions and opportunities. I don't know the data on the retention. Just think if you describe yourself as what we call as development candidates, future leader in the business world, you want to avoid the do-overs. I think it's risky. But if you've got other goals that are more important, I just saw this on LinkedIn. Somebody interviewed over a year ago. He's connected to somebody who's coming to our conference coming up. He just took a position in the Gulf Coast of Florida. And I looked him up in our system. Oh, this name's familiar. And I interviewed him. He said, Joel, I just want to get out. I just want to live on the Gulf Coast of Florida. I need a good job. I don't care as much about promotion. I just want to live there, be near my family, pay about this, and I'm going to be happy. You know what? He did it. And he used an internship program. Okay, good. That is a good strategy. And we weren't right for him. I think that's what we're trying to do.
No harm, no foul, right? There's nothing wrong with
We're not right for everybody, but I also don't think that the internships are right for everybody. And too often it's what do the military officers say? It's the alligator nearest to the boat. You know, they use that term. You think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out, and I don't know where I'm going to go. I'll give the flip answer. I just talked to 6 weeks ago somebody getting out of Hawaii, and kids in school, and he wanted to move, and he wanted to get a location, and his wife's like, where are we going? We've been in Hawaii. But he described wanting to be a development candidate, but he couldn't reconcile. I need to know where we're going. I have to get my kids in school by January. And so doing the internship program. And that's the hard thing is, okay, which you're making a trade-off. And so that weight of having to get to that location or knowing now overweighted the opportunity in making the successful transition.
So talking about these two different paths, we reviewed the pros and cons of the internship. So I think this is a great segue, talking about using a transition firm and what that looks like. And so Joel, I know you can speak really well to what you get out of working with a transition firm. Why don't we cover a few of those points?
Well, I'd say first that I believe this is not biased, right? But I also think this is true. We're the only ones truly out there as a transition firm. And what I mean by that, working a year in advance. And we, of course, or more. Yeah. And sometimes weeks. I think we've done that too, or a week. But on average, it's about a year. There is coaching Pete's a transition coach, I'm a transition coach. And that coaching is career strategy coaching. What's your transition strategy? And with coaching doesn't mean we're telling you how to do that. It's not like a football coach. I'm telling you how to block this person. It's listening, helping you uncover, listening, questioning, helping you create the strategy. And yeah, we're going to tell you when it's, hey, you might want to look out for this based on what you're doing. Second, we're going to teach you how to interview. Third, you're going to teach yourself business. We are too. There's self-study through the business. And then as you come closer to the conference, we create a resume that's going to stand out. And you can bypass all the filters. What I mean by filters is the screening of uploading a resume, having to do the screening interview. And we will then match you for, if this right now in this environment in 2022, it's on average about 13 interviews of opportunities that you're qualified for and interested in. I guarantee this. Nobody will have the same interview schedule that you do at a career conference. Nobody. There'll be 50 people.
You tell them about twins.
We had identical twins.
Yeah.
In every way. Identical twins that both went to the same college.
Yes.
Had the same major, and were both nuclear power submarine officers.
Different schedules.
That had different interview schedules because they were different types of communicators. They
Different
looked exactly
people.
the same. They had the same resume in terms of the degree, same school, same career field, different interview schedule. And then
how many? I was going to ask. So, our January conference kicks off tomorrow. You guys have been prepping for that. How many rounds of matching are we talking about? Like, how often are you getting your eyes on these officers' backgrounds and putting together their schedules?
Two separate questions, right? How often are you looking at eyes on the backgrounds? Eyes on the background is probably, just in the last 2-3 weeks, is probably 20-25 times for each person. True full-on matching, 3 times. But each person gets an individual look that lasts about an hour of a matching. We look through everything. What do you mean individual look? We're reviewing all of our notes. We're looking at their profile that they created, their evaluations. There's phone calls verifying things. Then the third round is about 4 hours worth of work where we're reviewing every candidate's schedule, every company's schedule. Does this make sense? By the way, every candidate is their resume and their schedule is reviewed by our CEO or myself, the partner here at Cameron. So everybody gets that look. So what's the benefit of that? You do the career search, you come to the conference. The best way I can explain this is, because I think it's hard for people to understand, it's like a buffet. I like to eat, so it's like a buffet. And so the buffet's got 12, 13 things on there, and you might think, hey, I really like steak.
I thought you were going to say fried chicken. Can you use fried chicken?
Or scalloped potatoes. It's scalloped potatoes or something. Maybe I like fried chicken and scalloped potatoes. But I go up there, and you know what? They have chicken fried steak instead.
Okay.
I like that too. And they got mashed potatoes. But I take a little bit of each. That's the interview at the conference. I think I like these. So I go back for seconds. This is my follow-up. I get a little bit more on the plate. Now, if I was eating dinner again, for the next week or so, what would I want to have my plate most nights? That would be my career. So the buffet is an option to go taste a lot of different things. And when you go back, you're going to take, really narrow it down to a few things that you really like, and you're going to pick one. And so, no, it's not a 90 to 120 day evaluation process like an internship is. I think it's when people think about, well, I really would know a lot more about something if I worked there for 90 to 120 days. Probably, but I'm telling you, you are going to know a lot about a lot of different things and about yourself and about the company that you will accept before you accept.
One of the things, let me jump in because you and I hear this all the time, and we've even recorded podcasts exploring this specific topic. One of the things that I think people miss out on when they explore one or two options is the whole cultural fit. We end up talking a lot about, hey, are you interested in leading teams or managing projects or whatever it might be? And all that's really important. Are you interested in living in Texas or in wherever, right? All of these things are important, but the thing that I consistently hear after someone does a career search is more about the people they're going to work with, the person they're going to work for, the culture of the company, which is so hard to compare. Well, it's impossible to compare if you're only looking at one or two things. But I think the hard thing is it's hard to know by looking at a website or reading some comments on Glassdoor, am I personally a fit? Do I gel with the boss? Do I gel with the team? Am I fitting culturally? And so the things that he's talking about comparing are really the things that, at least in our experience, people value the most. And it's very difficult to do unless you have the opportunity to explore multiple things.
Which leads me into, I've been talking about the retention rate. And our retention rate is around 98% after 1 year. Certainly it's human business, so it's not, ideally we'd love to be perfect, but it's 98%, and it's around 93% after 3 years. And that's the goal, is that successful transition that we're after. And we could trace that all the way back to comparing the options, because I think if you're in an internship, for example, it's binary. Do I like this or do I not? I think when you look at, for culture-wise, when you're evaluating number of options, culturally, like, I like this more than that. I like this part of this, but like that over there better, and I weight that factor more. And that's the power of the comparison versus this binary. It's okay, not that great. Yes, no, and like we go back to probably take it, bird in hand. Let's roll with it. I'll just look for something better. And that ends up being the do-overs, which, if we go back to what a lot of people get out, quality of life, work-life balance, they want more certainty, control over your career. And if you're changing companies, quitting, starting all over in year 1 or year 2, you're just introducing uncertainty. I guarantee you, work-life balance is not going to feel great because you're having to start all over again. You're not going to be increasing your compensation doing that because you're starting all over. So it's fun. You don't really solve. First of all, you don't solve one of the reasons why you're getting out, and you certainly don't head towards the main objective that's why I asked you that, where do I want to go? You're actually having to go back down the trail and start walking again. That is ultimately what we're after.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a lot of pros that Joel just talked about. So Pete, I'm going to toss it to you. There has to be another side of the coin. What are some of the perceived trade-offs?
Yeah, we're trying to be, this podcast, this episode, this video, we want to be objective. And so, sure, let me tell you what I hear and when people come to me, like, let's say I'm having a conversation with an officer and we're exploring a partnership, and they ultimately say, I don't want to form a partnership with you. A couple of things that I typically hear is there is less perceived certainty initially. And the reason I say that is because officers start interviewing at a career conference. So their first interviews are typically somewhere in the range of 2 months before they start terminal leave. And so a lot of things I'll hear from officers is, I don't know if I can wait all the way until I'm 2 months from starting terminal leave and available to start working to start interviewing. But it's such an interesting point because if you're interviewing for an open position, there's really not access to interview for an open position much more upstream than that. But that is certainly one of the things I hear. I don't want to wait to start interviewing. I don't want to wait until I get all the way to the end of the process. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to actually comment anything, but yeah, that's it is a trade-off. Most times, if you want to interview for something with an open position, you can't interview for something in January.
To start working.
To start with is June.
Yeah, or June, yeah.
Because the companies just don't know that yet. It's not a college hiring program.
It is
a experienced hire program.
You said it earlier. It's really the only place in the world where most people don't submit a resignation until they have something locked up on the other side of that. So it is a little bit of a harder thing.
Right. I was going to ask Pete, let me jump in there. So the less perceived certainty of getting to the conference, but what is the average turnaround time from conference to offer in hand at Cameron Brooks versus, maybe a normal career search?
Well, that's an interesting question because, once someone comes to the conference, they're approximately 2 months from starting terminal leave, but once folks come to the conference, like it's kind of slow, not interviewing. Then all of a sudden it's quick because the conference lasts 5 days. You're interviewing 2 of the five days, but on average 12 or 13 interviews. And then, before this pandemic hit, we would say, okay, from when the conference is over to when you accept a position, you could expect about 18 working days. But from what we've seen in the follow-up interview process, we're talking 12 days. So from the day the conference starts to the day on average that officers are making decisions, we're talking 17 days from start to finish. And one of the things I hear all the time, you probably do as well, is like, gosh, I didn't think I was going to have to make a decision this fast. As opposed to, an alternate path would be, well, I'm going to put my resume on LinkedIn. I'm going to have an HR professional call me, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them at this point. And I'm not exactly sure when they're going to call me back. And so that's a lot of what we see.
And they're usually choosing from multiple offers instead of, I got one in the middle of this other company waiting for it to turn down. But truly, I'm comparing these. And a lot of times they're choosing between A1 and A1.5 and like multiple that they really like. But the downside, again, it's come back to certainty without having it, I think, early up front. It's hard to 100% believe in it. And you hear the statistics, like the last 2 conferences, I think all but one candidate got an offer. And the only reason that one candidate did is that he got an offer on his own.
And he went out.
He cut out early from doing the follow-up interviews, which is, we might as well just count it as 100%. And last year is well over 95% of all people got offers. And even I bet we can go back and look at every single one of them. It didn't have anything to do with like they couldn't get one. They did something else. And we placed 90% of all the people we work with.
Which is really high.
So there's a benefit. But again, we come back to what we started with. There is an element that there's uncertainty. Still, even if you're like, okay, good, answer the question, it's going to most likely work as the data shows that. But I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know how much I'm going to get paid. I can't tell anybody who I'm working for because I don't know yet. And I don't know exactly what job it is. That is a lot. And then you throw in, like I was, and there's other people doing this, my wife's pregnant and due with a baby. And we don't even know where we're going to live yet. And that's probably some of the bigger downsides that it takes for people in terms of going through the process.
Gotcha. Anything
One
else?
other thing, let me so we can explore it all. One of the other things that I hear occasionally is I would like more control over the companies that I specifically interview with. And my answer, and I'm not trying to be kind of beat around the bush or kind of not answer the question directly, but I say to people, you do have control. You have a ton of control because Joel's talking about coaching and conversations, and many of those conversations come down to, what are you interested in? How do you see yourself? What are you really good at? What do you want to maximize and explore at the conference? And there is a level of trust in a partnership, right? That would be one of the main components of a partnership. But you're relying on someone with 23 years of helping military officers move from the military to corporate America to listen to your words closely and then find great fits for you. I think it would be interesting to hand someone a list of all the companies coming to the next conference and say, hey, tell me which ones that you want to interview with, and then do a study and actually go and figure out what company that person went to go work for based on the way that they were matched. I would argue that it's unlikely that those 2 things would be lined up at all, because you're in a partnership relying on someone that has so much experience, knowledge, and has seen the way that it works to help military officers transition. So in one hand, you have a ton of influence on the types of roles you're going to interview with, and really a lot of times the companies you're going to interview for. But this idea of, here, let me take a list and interview with all the companies I recognize in corporate America coming from a completely different industry, I think that can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, you do have control over that. It's by telling us what you're looking for, what's important to you. And that's documented, and Pete will know because he sits with me. We sweat it. Is this right? And we're trying to make these decisions. And the dovetails into one, but we can be here all day on points. Just often I get people that tell me, well, Joel, I want to explore all my options. Good luck. You can't. You can't explore all your options. It's impossible. Well, you could. You will be a perpetual interviewer.
Yeah, I mean,
You'll be a perpetual interviewer. And
Just
so the
looking
question
up
is,
jobs on a LinkedIn job board and it
or
produces
not
thousands of
exploring your
results.
options, right? So if you interview with as many, but the question is, I want to see I want to see as many good fits at the same time as I possibly can. I know, biased, worked there 22, there. I don't know of any other place that you can truly line up this many interviews and get offers running side by side in one place.
Gotcha.
Even, the closest would be like maybe an MBA school or a college. And even then, I don't think it's not that many. It's maybe you get college graduates are probably, they can see 2 or 3 or 4 things, but they typically get one offer. Maybe an MBA grad gets a couple. But there's no ability, you can't see all. I think the question is, if your goal is to do comparisons, what source, what avenue, what path, what partner gets me as many good quality options as possible?
And gets you to that. And, the question that you ask yourself before submitting your resignation packet that you mentioned, Joel, like, what does my happy, successful career, professional career, and personal life look like in 5 years? And which path am I going to take that's going to help me get there? So just tying it back into like the beginning of why you start this process in the first place. So just to kind of wrap it up, summarize this second path. So, utilizing a transition firm might be right for you if you want to fully explore your marketability. Like if you have multiple interests and you have a diverse skill set, you could see a variety of opportunities. It could be right for you if you want to interview for a developmental role, right? So not as specialized. If looking at job boards are overwhelming to you because you have someone on the other side who understands the function of the job, the company, the culture fit, and understands you, and can match to that. And then also underneath that, someone to just kind of walk alongside you. If just the whole process is overwhelming in general, we have career coaching and interview prep and resume assistance, just kind of as we all mentioned. So those are reasons that it could be right for you. And these are all the things that you have to think about when you are considering your 5-year plan and what you want your career to look like. So that was a great discussion, gentlemen. Thank you.
So now as we close out this conversation, we're going to have another conversation here that might surprise you. Cameron Brooks does qualify as a SkillBridge program. So you're going to want to watch the webcast that's on Cameron Brooks and the SkillBridge program, or listen to the podcast episode on how does Cameron Brooks qualify as a SkillBridge program.